A Moral Dilemma by Ethan Lin. Okay, so the moral dilemma description is basically you are a conductor of a train that is quickly approaching its station. However, before you can reach the station, you must make a turn at a fork. When you reach the fork, on one side there is a homeless man who has stumbled into the track and seems to have trouble regaining his balance. On the other side, there are a group of 5 teenagers who are filming a school music video and are distracted by each other and by their music. Do you stay in the lane to the station and hit the 5 teenagers, or do you switch lanes to avoid the group of teenagers but hit the homeless man? This hypothetical moral dilemma is inspired by the trolley problem that was presented to us during the first week of the semester. Why is this a moral dilemma? Well, a moral dilemma can be defined as a situation that involves a conflict between two or more moral obligations. In this case, the conflict in question is whether or not killing one person is worse than killing multiple people, or is killing one person just as bad as killing multiple people. It is everyone's moral obligation to refrain from murder. However, what happens if there is no choice but to kill someone? The dilemma in this situation is, do you choose to kill one person to save the other 5? Or do you choose to kill the 5 and save the one person? It is evident that killing another human being is morally wrong, but the scenario forces a person to differentiate which option is more morally correct and which option is more morally incorrect. Which moral obligations are involved and why do they conflict? The moral obligation of not killing anyone is involved in this scenario. Committing murder is a universal moral wrong and goes against the moral law as of the late 21st century. But what happens when killing someone is the only option you have? The conflict in this hypothetical situation is choosing who you should save and who you should kill. These two options conflict with each other because you and I both know that killing someone is wrong no matter what. But there is no finite explanation as to which one is more morally correct or incorrect. If it were up to me, I would have saved the 5 teenagers and run over the one homeless man. Although I am still going to kill somebody after reflection of my own moral values, I feel like killing one is better than killing 5. So killing that one homeless man was for the greater good of the 5 others, in my opinion. I believe that this is the best course of action because according to the utilitarian theory of morality, the purpose of morality is to maximize goodness in the world. An action is morally right when it maximizes happiness, and an action is morally wrong when it produces the opposite of happiness. Therefore, looking at the scenario from a utilitarianist point of view, killing the one homeless man in order to save 5 other lives would be morally correct because it maximizes happiness and thus creates a slightly happier outcome. The other option of killing the 5 teenagers to save the one homeless man would be morally wrong because it produces a net negative loss of life, which in my opinion would be the opposite of happiness. Identifying which option garners more happiness is tricky, but another important feature of utilitarianism is that we must weigh every affected being's possible happiness when attempting to determine which option produces the most happiness. With this in mind, to me, this means that the combination of the 5 teenagers' happiness is greater than the one homeless man's happiness. Therefore, it is more morally correct to choose to kill the one homeless man to save the 5 teenagers rather than to save the one homeless man and to kill the 5 teenagers. Some people who oppose the utilitarianism point of view may say that it is wrong, where the majority benefits while the minority group suffers. The opposition tend to give the example of people in the US benefiting from sweatshops because they are able to buy cheap and trendy clothing at the expense of disenfranchised sweatshop workers who are taken advantage of. In this case, the happiness of Americans outweighs the suffering of sweatshop workers and thus makes this morally correct. Although this makes sense to me, in the context of this situation, however, I do not believe that it applies to this scenario. On one side of the track, there are 5 teenagers who haven't even had the chance of making their own mark in their socio-economic environment, whereas the homeless man has already had his chance to make something of himself, but has given up and resorted to homelessness. So in my eyes, killing the one homeless man to save the 5 teenagers will be for the greater good of society.